Good morning, boys and girls. Happy Wednesday morning. Today is day 13 of NTI. Today is Wednesday, April 8th, and we are continuing Module 6, Lesson 2 today. And I'm really excited about today's lesson. This sort of brings Lesson 1, puts multiple things in Lesson 1 together for Lesson 2. So if you want to get your notebook out and write down Lesson 2, you don't have to write Lesson 2, but construct on a plane is what we're doing. A plane would be an open area, and that's what we're doing. We're going to actually construct a coordinate system. So I'm pretty pumped about today. We're going to use an x-axis and a y-axis, and if you notice right here, this is going to be an x-axis, and it's just like yesterday when we worked with a line. We're just naming it x, and it's actually called an x-axis, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to construct an x-axis and a y-axis. So a line labeled x and a line labeled y. But we want them to intersect in a specific way. And so what we're going to have is our x-axis and our y-axis, we want them to intersect perpendicularly. And that means, we talked about that during online field testing in Miss Grigsby's classroom, in my classroom, whenever we were learning about geometry. And that's when the lines intersect to form right angles. And so what we're going to do up here is, I'm going to construct using an x and y axis. And we want them to intersect perpendicularly. And so, for example, I'm going to make the y axis, and I'm going to label it y. So just like the x and the y. So what have we constructed here is a coordinate plane here, a coordinate system where we can put hash marks on this number line, on this x-axis. We could put hash marks on this y-axis, and we can actually plot points out here that follow these. So I'm going to show you more. So I'm going to keep going. So on this one, I'm going to turn my paper a little bit so that I can make sure that my x-axis and y-axis intersect perpendicularly to form right angles, okay? And then I'm going to turn this one a little bit this way. I want to make sure that I have an x-axis and a y-axis that intersect perpendicularly. And so what I've done is I've actually created 3 different coordinate planes, coordinate grids. And so the next picture that I show you, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about because you've probably seen these questions on the map test, okay? And something else down here, so we have, remember, you can pause the video at any time and write down these notes. I want you to get these copied in your math notebook, okay? So you pause at any time to keep caught up. So we want them to enter the x-axis and y-axis. That's the line x and line y. We want them to intersect perpendicularly to form right angles. Might not be super perfect, but you get the idea. The point of their intersection is called the origin. And I told you yesterday in lesson 1 that we would build on to our definition of origin, and this is it. So on one line, the origin would be 0. But in this case, now that we have the x and y axis perpendicularly intersecting, that point of origin right there, that point R, its coordinates are called 0, 0. Okay, so origin is 0, 0. It's the point of intersection between the x and y axis, okay? Now, within that coordinate, this is how you're going to be writing coordinates for the rest of this module. Every lesson, you might have an x coordinate of y, x coordinate of 2, and a y coordinate of 3. And if you notice, I've even drawn this here. This represents your x coordinate. You travel on the x-axis is first, x coordinate, and then you have the y coordinate. So we will go up or down on the y. And right now in your math world, we're just going x and then y, okay? And I'll show you more on the next page. So you may have more, here's an example of a coordinate, 0, 0, and we do have them in parentheses, 2, 3. And if you remember yesterday on some of our number lines, we didn't just count by whole numbers, we counted by fractions too. So you could have an x coordinate, remember the first one is the x coordinate of 3 and a y coordinate of 1 and 1/2. You could even have an x coordinate of 1 and 1/2 and a y coordinate of 2 and 1/2. Okay, so those are just some examples of some coordinates that you're going to see. The difference from yesterday to today is yesterday we only had one line. So we only had one coordinate. Like, remember the point A was on the coordinate of 6. Today, you have 2 lines intersecting, so you need 2 coordinates. The x coordinate and the y coordinate. The x and the y. The x and the y. X and the y. X and the y, okay? So this is what it will look like whenever we go to our problem set today. So I know some of you, and I'm going to put a point here. So this is going to be 0, 0 here. Right here, this is where our x-axis and our y-axis intersect perpendicularly, okay? The x-axis, the x-coordinate is first. So we always start at the origin, unless the directions tell us otherwise, but that would be more like on the map test. And in this module, it's not going to tell you to start somewhere. For example, it could say start at 5, coordinate 5, 5. And you would have a compass here, north, south, east, and west. And it would say, move 2 blocks east, 1, 2. Move 2 blocks south, 1, 2. But you're not going to have any of that because we're not taking the map test. Well, I don't know yet. So if you see that on the map test, we'll talk about that further down. So anyways, what I've done is we have a coordinate system here, coordinate plane, coordinate grid, and we are going to find the coordinates for point A. So again, like I said, which coordinate is first? The x coordinate, then the y. And where do we start? Always start at the origin. Let's write that down. Always start at the origin. And remember, that is 0, 0 now. Okay? So 0, 0 is where we're starting at. So we're starting here. And the only thing you guys have to remember, guys, the x-axis is first. The x-coordinate is first. So if we're going to plot point A, and I'm starting here at the origin, and I'm going remember the coordinate. What is the coordinate? The x-coordinate for point A. So it would be 6. So down here, I would fill in the 6. Now remember, you can pause your video at any time and get all of this copied, and then you can press play when you're ready to go. So our x-coordinate is 6. Okay, so we traveled on the x-axis to figure out where that point A is. Now, for the y, we would be moving up because we want to stay, the y-axis is over here, so we have to stay over here at the 6, and we're going to be traveling up. But the problem is, what do you notice? What would be the y-coordinate for point A? If it doesn't move anywhere, what's the coordinate? It would be 0. So point A's coordinates is 6, 0, because it doesn't move up any, okay? Let's look at point B. So point B is sort of a little different. It doesn't travel on the x, it only travels on the y. So let's start with our x-axis, x-coordinate, right? So if I'm here and I'm going over to find the B, the point B, where is it? Well, it's directly above. So the x-coordinate for B is actually going to be 0. Okay, so we're going to write that down. And then, so we didn't travel any on the x-axis, so our x-coordinate is 0. And then for the y-coordinate going up to B, it would be 6. So these are 2 that I really want you to pay attention to, because point A has an x-coordinate of 6, but a y-coordinate of 0 because the point doesn't travel on the y. Down here, point B has an x-coordinate of 0 because it doesn't travel on the x. It only travels up the y to 6, okay? Now let's look at point C. So where do we start? We always start at the origin, and we always travel on the x-axis first. We always go on this x-axis. So we're going to travel over till we get to point C. There it is. So what do we know? What is the x-coordinate for point C? The x-coordinate is 4. Okay, and then we'll travel up to the y using this y over here, traveling up the y. We notice that point C is 3. So again, start at the origin. We travel on the x-axis first. Boys and girls, this will be your number 1 confusion. You travel on the x-axis first. Do not travel up and then over. So for example, the C is not 3, 4. That is incorrect. You travel on the x-axis first every single time. So it is 4, up to 3. 4, 3. Now let's look at point D. So we have x, right, start at the origin. Always start at the origin. X is first. Always the x-axis, the x-coordinate. So for D, our x-coordinate is 2. And then for, oh, this is kind of cool. So in this case, x-coordinate is 2, and then we travel the y-axis, and it is actually 2 as well. So this one would be 2, 2. In that case, the x and y coordinate are equal, okay? So to remember, these are your most important things. Always start at the origin, 0, 0, unless the directions tell you to, but we're not to that right now. We won't have it in this module. You might see it on the map test. Then the x-axis, the x-coordinate is first, right here. Start here, and you find that point, whatever they're trying to tell you to find. It could even be a shape, remember from yesterday. Then you travel on the y. It is the second one. X, y, x, y, x, y, x, y. Okay? All right, so I'm going to show you the problem set. So for the problem set, now I've already I've done these for you on on this video. So if you want, you won't have to do these. If you're an at-home person who has this paper, you'll need to practice these 3, okay? Now, going down to number 2, well, I mean, we could do it up here if you want. So remember, we want it says, use a set square to draw a line. We're not going to use a set square. We're just going to try our best to draw a line perpendicular to the x-axis through points P, Q, and R. Label the new line as the y-axis. So we want them to intersect perpendicularly, and they want them to go through those points. So perpendicular. You might even be able to, if you want to try this at home, you can. If you're Google Classroom people, you can try it in your notebook. People who have this paper, remember you want them to intersect perpendicular. I got off a little bit there. Sorry about that. Perpendicularly, and label it Y. Okay? Point R. We want to go through point R. Here's our x-axis. We're creating the y. Okay? All right, and then down here. So this one says, use the coordinate plane to answer the following. Name the shape at each location. I want you to pause the video. I want you to see if you can figure out which shape has an x-coordinate of 2 and a y-coordinate of 5. And draw them in your notebook, or if you have this paper, you write it on the paper. Remember, Google Classroom in your notebook. People who are at home, with no Google Classroom, you're writing on the paper. So again, where do we start? That's right, we start right down there in that origin. And what do we travel on first? We travel on the x first, then we travel on the y, okay? So I want you to write down, pause the video and write down the 4 shapes that are going to go with those coordinates. 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 6, and 6, 5. Pause the video. All right, so now that you've gotten a chance, so I'm going to go ahead and solve for you. So we're going to travel on the x first. Remember, it even says x-coordinate, x-coordinate. So we're going to start there. We're going to travel on the 2, and then we're going to travel the y-coordinate 5. So all the way up, we're going to follow the y all the way up to 5, and your first shape should have been the triangle. All right, let's look at our second one. X-coordinate of 1, y-coordinate of 2. So we always start at the origin over to 1 on the x. Look, x-coordinate, x-coordinate, over to 1, and up on the y-axis to 2, we end up at the circle. Okay. Next, we have 5, 6. So we have an x-coordinate 5, x. So we start at the origin, over to 5, and we're traveling up the y all the way up to 6, which is the square. Check your work. I'm sure you guys are rocking this. All right, our next one is 6, 5. So see how that could be where you could get confused. This is 5, 6. This is 6, 5. So if you went the wrong way earlier, you would have gotten at the square here. So pay very close attention. 6 is the x-coordinate. Start at the origin, travel over to the 6, and we're not stopping at 0 for the y, so we're going up to the 5, it says, and that would be looks like a hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. Yes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I lied. 6, 7, 8. I'm sorry, that is an octagon. That is an 8 side. 8 sided. And I tried my best, and I went out the lines, but that's okay. So that was the octagon. Okay, good job, guys. Now, a few more questions here. B says, which shape is 2 units from the y-axis? When you see this, from the y, I want you to lay your pencil on the y. It says from the y-axis. I want you to lay your pencil down and go from the y 2 units. Now remember, the whole units are holes. So not 2 lines, not 2 grid lines, 2 units, 2 wholes. And if we look at this number line, these are whole numbers. So we're from the Y. You would lay your pencil on the Y and go from it, and that would be the triangle. Okay, so from the Y, we hit the triangle that is at the 2, okay? Which shape has an x-coordinate of 0? An x-coordinate of 0. That means, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't let you pause the video. If you want to pause for a minute and do C and D, you can. Sorry about that, I didn't let you do B. Sorry about that. If you want to pause the video and try and answer C and D, now's the time, okay? Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so now that you've tried C and D, it says which shape has an x-coordinate of 0. That means when you're at the origin and we're traveling on the x, they don't want you to travel at all for the x-coordinate. Our first coordinate has to be 0, which means that I don't travel at all. So now that means which shape has an x-coordinate? If I can only go up, it's this right here. It's actually kind of looks like a parallelogram. I'm sure they're trying to say it's a rhombus. It is the rhombus. The rhombus's coordinates would be 0, 1. See, we wouldn't travel any, and we would move up to the 1. So the rhombus's coordinates are 0, 1. Okay? All right, and here's another one like letter D. Which shape is 4 units from the Y and 3 units from the X? So literally, you're going to be on the Y. Put your fingers or put your hands on the Y axis, and you're going to go 4 units from the Y. 4 units from the Y. You can travel with your pencil. Watch the numbers down here. 4 units from the Y. Okay, so right now, I am on top of the square. It's actually, it's a square, but that is what they're calling a diamond. So the diamond. So right there, and then we're going to make sure it's 3 units from the X. So again, we're going to lay on the X and go up 3 whole units using that number over there. So we end up at the same one, and that is the diamond. Okay, this does not mean 4y, 3x, 3, 4. That is not what that means. That means from the Y, lay it on the Y, and watch these numbers on the bottom and go 4 units away. Boom. Lay on the X and go 3 from the X, and there it is right there. And it is the diamond, okay? Sorry, my shape's a little off, okay? All right, flip to the back. I want you to pause the video and see if you can answer these on your own. Now you're writing the coordinates, okay? And then they want you to plot these 3. You're going to plot a triangle, plot a square, and plot an X. So I want you to pause the video. Now, really quickly before you pause, look at what they're counting by. This is very tricky. If you notice, some of these say fourths. So they're actually counting on the grid lines by fourths. So this would be 0, 1/4, half, 3/4, 1. 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, 2. 2 1/4, 2 1/2, 2 3/4. So you're going to have to really take your time on this one. So I'm going to zoom in there. I'm going to let you pause and see if you can write the coordinates for the smiley face. Write the coordinates for the diamond, the coordinates for the sun, and the coordinates for the heart. Pause the video and get busy. Okay, now that you've had a chance to pause the video, we're going to work on it together. So smiley face. So that's right there. So remember, we always start at the origin. We travel on the X first. So we're going to travel till we get to that smiley face. There it is. And our X coordinate is 2. And if we go up on the Y, looking at it over here, traveling up on the Y coordinate is 1. Check your work. All right, next is the diamond, and that's actually a rhombus. So the diamond is not a shape, a polygon that I like to talk about. It's actually not a correct term. The one on the other page was a square, and that one is a rhombus. So it's a little frustrating, but anyways. All right, so we have a diamond. We're going to start at the origin. We're going to travel on the X first. And if we notice, oh my goodness, it has the same as the smiley face. So the X coordinate is 2. And then we're going to go up all the way to the Y. And this is 3 1/2. Remember, we were counting by fourths. So this is going to be 3 3/4, and then 4. So it is 3 3/4. And remember, you can always number those if you want, if you're writing this down in your notebook or if you're actually doing the paper. All All right, the next one was the sun. If you notice, here's the sun right here. So we're going to start at the origin. And are we traveling any? This way on the x? No, which means the x coordinate is 0. Very good to those of you who got that. And then, lucky us, the y coordinate is the same as the diamond. So it's going to be 3 3/4 again. All right. And then the heart. So here's our heart right here. Now, remember, we're starting at the origin, 0, 0, traveling on the x all the way to here. So this is the x coordinate. So 3 1/2 to 4. So we would have, if I need to go back a little bit, I can write 3 1/4, 3 1/2, 3 3/4 is going to be our x for our heart. And then, do we travel up any on the y? No, which means our y coordinate is 0. Okay? Now, those of you at home who are doing Google Classroom and you don't have this paper, I want you to pause the video and see if you can do these 3 problems. Write them down really quick and then see if you can just point where you think it would go on the screen, okay? Those of you who do not have Google Classroom and you have this paper, I want you to try and plot, plot, plot. Okay, pause the video, try your best, and then click play when you're ready for me to show you the answers. All right, here we go. So we're going to plot a triangle at 3, 4. So we're going to start at the origin. The x-axis is always first. So we're going to go over to the 3 for the x, and then we're traveling up to the 4 for the y. Up, 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 up. I'm going to try and stay on there. So 3 and 4. So we're going to plot a triangle right there. Okay. And then we have a square at 4 3/4, 5. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to make sure I have 4 1/4, 4 1/2, 4 3/4. So we're going to start at the origin, 4 3/4, all the way over, 4 3/4 for the x, and our y-axis is 5. So we're going to go all the way up to the 5, the very, 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 very top line there. So 4 3/4, 5. We're going to plot a square. And if you notice, my shape that I'm drawing is right there where those grid lines intersect. And last is an x, at 1/2, 3/4. So remember, we always start at the origin. Our x is only 1/2, so our x coordinate is 1/2. So we're staying right below this grid line. And then we're going up to 3/4. So we know we have 1/4, 1/2, and then 3/4. And I could even write that over there if I wanted to, because remember we were counting by fourths. So we have 1/2 up to 3/4. So we're going to plot an x right there. And that's it for today, guys. If you need to rewatch the video or look over your notes as you work, you are more than welcome. Those of you who have Google Classroom, go ahead and exit out. You'll be on lesson 2. Hold on, make sure I say it correctly. It'll be lesson 2 exit ticket. And then people at home with the paper who don't have Google Classroom, you'll be looking at lesson 2 exit ticket in your math packet. All right. Thanks, guys. I hope you have a great day, and we'll continue this tomorrow. Love you guys and miss you. See ya.